our mission is not just about providing that content. And I think that's the difference.
Interesting.
It really is about changing outcomes for our community. I think we really, really operate, we kind of thrive at this intersection of content, culture, and community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Marketing Vanguard podcast. I'm Jenny Rooney with Adweek, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Kimberly Paige. She's the CMO of BET in what is our inaugural special interview at Cannes, coming live to you from just beside the Croisette. Kim, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's great to see you. I'm thrilled to have you here. And yes, we're kicking it off. So way to go. You're just coming off of judging, so I'm catching you fresh. Tell me a little bit about that. And for anybody who doesn't know, judging a Cannes Lions award category is probably one of the most esteemed honors that one in this industry could receive.
Absolutely. I was incredibly excited to be selected in the entertainment sector. And it is really intense. It is intense. There's a lot of pre-work. You're looking at north of 200 submissions I've done, some incredibly long, some short, branded integrations. And then you go through a process of shortlisting. And then when we land here at Cannes, that's when we really get to debate and look at the shortlist. And so it's a very intense project, a process by way of your phones are taking, you're like in a little clandestine room. But it is so amazing to just be surrounded by other people in the industry. It's a global judging panel, and just the perspective. I mean, really, really interesting. Just this notion of your lived experience. Yeah, what that means when you're receiving creativity and storytelling. It was, I think we all walked away like really feeling like we had learned a lot from one another.
Yep.
And definitely really enjoyed the submission.
It's a mix of brand side CMOs and agency executives, correct? Okay. Do you have others from the various facets of the industry who comprise the judging committees? Do you have ad tech folks? Do you have media folks?
Agencies like chief, creative officers, a lot of producers.
Yep.
We had one showrunner and then two CMOs.
Okay. So, I mean, it's interesting because, you also know each other, I would imagine. So it's almost interesting, the dynamics in the room. You have to sort of be super honest, and you're showing up as yourself. You're not really representing your company when you're in that context.
You are looking at, every submission has to really stand on its own. You can't really bring in a lot of kind of background or baggage, and you want to be true to the process. But yeah, it's very transparent conversations, healthy debates. And at the end of the day, you just really want to recognize the best work. Yeah. And I think part of our conversation was, what do we as a judging panel, what do we want to really signal to the world around what good works, what looks great in this environment, in this marketplace? It was a really interesting kind of threshold in terms of as we were looking at one submission versus the other.
So first of all, congratulations on being named a judge, because that's a huge honor. And I do think it's something that a lot of people aspire to because of the responsibility it carries, to your point, right? I mean, there's sort of, as if CMOs didn't have enough responsibility. Now, as a judge, I love what you said about, like, you're choosing work that you feel like needs to be representative of what good looks like. We're sitting here in June 2025. Without disclosing, obviously, any insights or trade secrets, but like, what does good look like?
It's a great question. I think for us, where we landed is one, just really defining what is entertainment today. And even if you think about defining entertainment today, most of us, our biggest competitors are platforms like TikTok.
Yeah,
that's where people are going for entertainment.
Totally.
Right. So it's not your Paramount versus your Fox Studios. Like, it's that the frame of reference is so much larger. And so when you're in this environment and you're looking at the best of the best, you really want to get back to real, true storytelling. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yep.
And you want to have rich stories around rich characters and things that, I often talk about, this notion of marketing with a big M. And, that really is, if it's meaningful, if it matters, it'll move the metrics. I think we're really trying to get back to meaningful work.
Yeah.
It says. And so we gravitated to storytelling that was rooted in authentic insights, really this notion of humanity. There were a number of moments where, do you want the flashy, shiny, latest tech driven, or do you really want beautiful storytelling?
Yeah.
We ended up in the space of, it's nice to really be able to see beautiful storytelling.
I love that. I think the world needs that right now.
We absolutely.
Um, and I would imagine you're also in a room where you're judging competitors' work in some respects, whether it's you or somebody else. Is that a strange place to be?
No, I think, I love to look at competitors' work.
Yeah.
And I think, it's not this constant, like looking to the left or the right, but I do think we operate in a world where content is infinite.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to understand, I'm a huge content junkie. And so I watch a lot of competitive content as well. And so again, when you're really kind of saying the standard is great work.
Yeah.
Because that's what our consumers are doing. They will go anywhere for great content.
Yeah.
And so when you remove kind of it's on this platform versus this channel versus this network, and really kind of say, this is really good work.
Yeah.
So right. So it's a lot of competitive work.
I'm sure you did. Well, congrats again. And listen, meanwhile, we're going to talk about BET in a minute because this is a huge year for you on a number of levels. But I'd love for you to just start by sharing a little bit about you. You've had extensive experience at Coca-Cola. You've been in the brand world for many years, and you've been at BET for how long now?
September will be 6 years.
Okay, so that's frankly, that's beating the 10-year stats of the average CMO. So you've seen a lot in that 6 years, but obviously you've seen a lot throughout your career. Bring us up to speed.
So started my career at Procter & Gamble with many other brand managers. 3 years of amazing work and training, development. Even now I kind of fall back on some of those fundamentals, marketing, what it means to truly build highly coveted and profitable brand.
Yeah. And by the way, ex-P&Gers are a unique subset of the CMO community, right? And I love coming across them because there are a few sort of foundational, I'm going to refer to them as Vanguard companies in this industry where marketers have really gotten they have their roots and they've gotten their start. Obviously, one is P&G. I would argue Coke is another. Pepsi too has also been quite a growth starting point for a lot of senior marketers. But back to your point about P&G, hugely foundational for you.
Amazing experience. Have built lifelong relationships and friends coming out of P&G. Kind of doing the grind in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
It's really kind of really start to build your family. From P&G, went to Coca-Cola for 17 years. Loved beverages, still love beverages, and had some amazing runs there. Ran the Sprite business globally for a very long time. I had a treasure chest of assets from NBA, LeBron, right? Everyone, my God, that was a really, really fun role. I will point out, like, my last role, like Coke, before I left, was really leading the marketing for a group called Ventures and Emerging Brands.
Okay, yeah.
And it was like this really cool, very small team. And our remit was really thinking about, where's the beverage landscape going at the time? Obviously, very, strong category headwinds against carbonated soft drinks time. And so it just naturally had a more health and wellness lean to it.
Yep.
And so, it was kind of a build it, buy it partner scenario once we figured out we want to be in this space versus that space. So by the time I left, I had a bone broth, a kombucha, my number of brands, in the portfolio. And at the time, and this is really dating myself, but we were looking at trends and all I kept saying was people will want salad in a bottle. We didn't even have the term fresh juices back then.
Yeah.
But we saw the trends of where health and wellness was.
Yeah.
And so we acquired several fresh juices. And so it was a really, really fun time. It was very entrepreneurial in nature. We worked a lot with the founders. And so it was just really a great role. And I still, again, regardless of the industry that I'm in, there are just some fundamental experiences that I still use. And then from beverages to beauty and now in media, and I'm it.
You're Coty?
Yes, I was at Coty, while doing a major acquisition, assisting my team right now. There were a major acquisition, and then from beauty, went to Paramount Global.
Oh my God. I mean, what an incredibly diverse career. Like the coming together of all of those. By the way, the beverage category, I mean, talk about innovation.
Yes.
Like that category is insane. And it continues to be. So like I can only imagine that from that you took so much, all of the experiences that you've had. I remember I went to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, which was right next to Cincinnati. And
Very familiar with Oxford.
P&G would hire a lot of marketing students out of Miami. And I'll never forget, one of my friends did something that was like a mock agency that Miami did. And Fruitopia was like their product that they pitched to Coke. So really? See?
I haven't heard that phrase.
I know. Maybe somebody needs to bring it back. But anyway, like a never-ending, fast-moving category. So anyway, but fast forward to BET. So you've been there 6 years. How have you taken all of those experiences and brought them to bear in BET?
And, at P&G, I worked on Cascade dishwashing detergent, right? And now I'm in the media and entertainment. And I think as marketers, our primary role is demand creation, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of the category. And so
Regardless of the category, the product, the vehicle,
I think, the beauty of really having this, these vast experiences is that you see consumers in a variety of different ways in terms of their journeys and things of that nature, depending on what the industry is. But it's been wild being in media during this time. As you have imagined, every brand is a media company.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, I think we've realized that brands have to be great storytellers.
Yeah.
So to be in the midst of what I would kind of really define as one of the most dynamic and competitive kind of environments is really, I think, I'm pulling on CPG learning, I'm pulling on tech learning. You have to pull on everything because our consumer is really just at a level of evolution and development and scrutiny and offerings. And so it is a very, very, I think, high energy, dynamic, during, crises, you don't panic. You kind of have to pivot and really be able to really kind of keep in front of the hockey puck a bit in terms of understanding where consumers are going. And so it's been really interesting.
So what I love about what you said is every brand is becoming a media company, but all media companies are brands.
Correct.
So you've been on both sides of that equation, but the coming together, sort of the race to the center, if you will, from perspective there is very fascinating. So you're able to apply that. And BET has such a strong brand. In fact, you just jetted in from the BET Awards, which is your annual.
It's their Super Bowl.
It's your Super Bowl, and this is not only that, but it's the 25th anniversary. Talk a little bit about that. Those moments for the brand as a CMO.
Yes.
To your point, it's the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm sure that you want to win with that. You want it to be as impactful as possible. How do you define that?
So for us, we define it because to your point, we sit on both sides of the table, right? We are here as a brand representing and kind of our overall value prop. And then on the other side, we have brands that come to us because they want to engage with our audience.
Yeah.
And so you obviously have to, define the success by way of your sponsorship and your ad revenue.
Absolutely.
So that's always kind of the top,
Of course.
we're
We're a media company too. So
the business metric. But also as a brand, you want to really lean into these big moments, right?
Yeah.
You want to be able to talk about really big things that are, that are meaningful and that matter to the brand, to your audience, to your community. And so we really, really try to be incredibly intentional because this is the time when we know we've got the largest audience of the year.
Yep.
And so if there are moments, if there's statements we want to make, again, about our audience, about our brand, this is the moment, right? And so we really had defined it as Culture's Biggest Week in the sense of it is a 4-day Herculean effort as about culture and specifically Black culture and its role on the global stage. And so as you can imagine, just the backdrop of what's happening in the world today, we really try to really be timely as we talk about the things that are important. But we also want to honor the artist and just give them a stage. And there's something about whether they've been on the Grammy stage or the Oscar stage, there's something about coming home into our stage. I love that. It just feels as big as it is, very intimate.
Yep.
if you can. And
Yep.
we were fortunate to have Kevin Hart as our host, and that was another whole variable in the mix.
I love that.
Especially going live.
Yeah. Where were you? Where were you sitting as you were watching it?
Well, this year, because there was so much going on, I think we had a record level of talent after the show.
Yep.
So I was backstage a lot. I was backstage a lot. Again, sadly, the show is in LA, and the backdrop, was a lot of protests going on. And so, 2 to 3 security briefings a day. And you're trying to manage that all, but still wanting to deliver the best show possible. And thankfully we went off without a hitch. But it's fun when you're doing a live show. I mean, the adrenaline's pumping, the talent is amazing. And as I mentioned, Kevin owned this stage. That's awesome. That's really, really, really powerful.
That's awesome. It's also the 45th, this year is the 45th anniversary of BET in general. Talk about, when BET launched, sort of what was the remit? What was sort of the goal there, and how has that adjusted or shifted or not in 45 years?
If you think about the founder, Bob Johnson, at the time, I really wanted to create a space and a place where Black culture could be seen, celebrated, recognized on the main stage. But he was a shrewd businessman as well, right?
Yeah.
This wasn't a corporate social responsibility mission. No, he knew that there was a real viable
Business case.
Right. And, for me, I often talk about cultural credibility and how that drives commercial viability.
Yeah.
And if you really understand that culture, you can monetize that and you can really have a successful business. And we understand some people try to buy into the culture and co-opt it in a way. But when you're truly authentic, I think it really does kind of pay dividends. And obviously you start to build equity in the brand, and being 45 years in service to this audience has been really powerful. I think the difference as we think about 45 years later, we started as the only place. Now you can see Black culture and Black content everywhere, thankfully, right? And so our mission is not just about providing Black content. And I think that's the difference.
Interesting.
It really is about changing outcomes for our community. I think we really, really we kind of thrive at this intersection of content, culture, and community.
Yeah.
And if you think about the last 4 to 5 years, the needs have been many.
Mm-hmm.
You think about from the pandemic to the socioeconomic to the political to the social unrest. I mean, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And when you really wake up each day and say, how can I change outcomes for my audience? How can I be of greater service? And then you think about all of those things outside of just the immediate realm of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big responsibility. It is a really big responsibility because we can't just entertain. We have to educate. And again, coming on the heels of a really big election. Our remit was to ensure that our audience had factual based data and were educated in terms of making the right choice as it relates to kind of their voting rights. And so, it would be lovely perhaps just to be focused on entertainment, but we don't. And to me, that was my why of joining BET is, just this notion of how can we truly advance, kind of this notion of Black love and Black joy and Black pride.
Love that. Talk a little bit about, as you think about, wanting to stay relevant, thinking about brand partnerships that, there has to be, the authenticity piece has to be at the core. How, what are some of your best brand collaborations? Who have been the brands that have been with you along the way?
Yes. I mean, I think obviously the CPG space, again, if you think about our audience, very high index in terms of consumption and commerce.
Totally.
And so you've naturally got a lot of the CPG across, all industry, again, travel and I was going to say F&B, food and beverage, automotive, all the things.
Yeah.
So the industry is and the indices in terms of our engagement, our early adoption in terms of technology, social, all those things. And so I think you really have to really understand that and really build that case for our partners.
Yep.
there's a natural, okay, I want to lean into this audience. But at the end of the day, you really want to build a case and why it's viable, in the immediate, in the now, next and later phase. And so we do a number of our partners come to us and say, I want to engage, but I don't know how.
Yep.
And so we have our, integrated brand solutions team. And so, whether it's, a brand may come to us and say, you guys do all of the creative for us, authentically integrate our brand. And so our brand solutions team is incredibly strong, kind of parallels any agency that we could work with. But, the service is really end to end. As I mentioned, we are a media company, but we also really partner with several of our partners. So I think about the P&Gs, the Unilevers, the Walmarts of the world. Of course, those are some of our really, really big clients.
But I'm sure there's startups. I'm sure there's new renegade companies that are, tech.
Companies are really leaning in. So it's exciting time.
That's awesome.
Leaning into tech, even from a marketing standpoint. And so just really trying to keep the brand contemporary and fresh and dynamic, yet rooted in its heritage and depth.
A question I ask on all my Marketing Vanguard interviews, or at least try to, is back to you. What's one decision you've made in the 6 years you've been there that you feel, or you go back to, or you feel like is a touchstone for you around something you feel very proud to have done that's changed the trajectory, not just of the brand, but of the business?
Well, it's funny.
And by the way, CMOs don't like to take credit. I get that. But decisions are important to identify.
As I was going through the process, I was really saying, what's on the table?
Yeah.
Because it's not about the past 45 years, but how do you future-proof it for the next 5 years?
Yeah.
So I'm really proud that we were the first brand within the Paramount Global ecosystem to get into streaming. Really proud of that. I mean, because I think we really understood, again, going back to our audience and their early adoption of high indices as it relates to content consumption and streaming. And now we've just recently launched Splash Channel. So getting into the streaming and really standing that up successfully was one thing that I was super proud of. I would say the other thing was, I came in and said, let's redesign it. Let's redesign the overall visual identity system. And I know a lot of CMOs want to touch to the brand and the logo.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do it in such a way that really signaled to the marketplace that this was not your average or your old BET.
Love that.
And I remember our CEO saying, you broke the logo. And I said, no, I liberated it.
I love that. That's awesome.
It's really based off of an insight around like creating this kind of beautiful blank canvas, because I think that's what culture is. It can't be defined. It can't be bound. And so there's a dynamic motion and movement to the logo in a way that had not been considered before.
Yeah.
And we came second, and it was a competitor for Brand Week's reposition of
awesome.
Really recognized on the global stage, and I was really, really proud of that. And I think more importantly, it was an overall visual identity system, but what it did was it kind of raised the bar.
Yeah.
And so our, programmers, our producers, everyone kind of looked at it and was inspired at a different level.
Yeah.
And so then the content had to
raise up
as well.
Yeah.
And so I was proud about that. There have been so many things, I think, really proud of my team. Kind of have really kind of built that,
it's great.
From scratch in some ways. And really, we've been having really record-breaking growth. This is the first year we're kind of challenged as the market goes. Sure. But we've had some phenomenal wins over the past couple of years that I'm incredibly proud of.
Last quick question. Who's next? Who should I have on the podcast?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I think you have several of my friends coming up next. I think, as you're thinking about, brands and marketers who are really doing exciting things in the AI space, because I think we're all really leaning in, but we're learning, and there's such a high level of experimentation. So I would say anyone who's really kind of leaning in, it's an interesting time for marketers.
It is, to say the least. Kim, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a pleasure. And look forward to seeing you around the Quasette for the rest of the week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me.
Being here.
Thank you for listening to Marketing Vanguard, part of the Adweek Podcast Network and Acast Creator Network. You can listen and subscribe to all of Adweek's podcasts by visiting adweek.com/podcasts. Stay updated on all things Adweek Podcast Network by following us on Twitter at Adweek Podcasts. And if you have a question or suggestion for the show, send us an email at podcast@adweek.com. Thanks for listening.